or excuse me, on the other side of that, alpha males, dominant, fearless, territorial, community leaders, resilient, one who won't settle, a radical thinker, progressive, a revolutionary, one who won't rest until his family rises above mediocrity, or one that defeats his oppressor.
Talk
Things
that
that,
shit.
things that,
Talk
yeah.
that shit.
What's happening, family? Welcome to another episode of the Fatherhood Village podcast, the official home for proud fathers and mentors. We appreciate you plugging in with us today. I'm Dale Holloway, as always, with the one and only Kev Hick. What's been going on, man? How you feeling today?
Oh man, wonderful, brother. Blessed and highly favored. That's what they say, right?
Hell yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How's the fam doing?
Man, good. Man, everybody down for the count, man. It's a late night for us, brother. You know, we record late, so everybody be down by the time we get on this line.
I dig it. I dig it. Hopefully we don't get too rowdy, But for this episode, we're gonna address the misconceptions of masculinity. Something that Kev brought to my attention a little bit ago. So we wanted to dive into this, make sure we made some good points and address the facts. And I believe, after looking at this topic, going through some things in my head of my idea of masculinity, I believe the meaning of masculinity over time has been arbitrarily reconstructed or wildly misinterpreted, So I want to begin with what separates an alpha male from a beta male, a weak male from a strong male. To me, it's how they apply their masculinity and how they operate as a man in today's society, how they conduct themselves in a given situation. It's how a man demonstrates his intelligence. Being physically and mentally tough is a part of that. So how he effectively balances his humility and ego. Having masculine qualities is biologically natural, but it doesn't define the type of man you are in itself. So how are you using your masculinity and your capabilities to leverage for the greater good to serve your community? So
I watched a lot of young men right now going through a rite of passage, and that rite of passage at the moment is generally about how much money you can amass, or how many women you can lay down, or how many guys you can beat up, or assault. There are all these things that we've been given through mostly our media and the unfit leaders of our community, and the unaware young people following the unfit. And for me, I want to make something very clear. To me, the alpha males are those men who are handling their responsibilities to their family and to their community, those who are uplifting their people and uplifting the atmosphere, who add to the atmosphere, who bring joy, who bring peace, who bring contentment, who exemplify respect and honor. Those are alpha males. Fucking a bunch of women don't make you alpha. Fighting a bunch of people don't make you alpha. Selling a bunch of dope don't make you alpha. Getting a bunch of money don't make you alpha. We always hear about these guys, in the hierarchy system. A lot of men want to exalt themselves above others, and so they start talking about betas. Oh, you a beta bitch. You a beta bitch. We've heard these things. And for those men who might be a little bit confused about what the betas are, I want to make it very clear. The beta men are the men who have lost their instinct to fiercely protect the women and children of the tribe. Those are the beta males.
mhm.
Men who handle their responsibilities, men who honor women, men who have a reverence for women and a respect for their elders are not the betas. Just because I don't have a chain on my neck and every word out of my mouth ain't bitch and nigga doesn't make me a beta male. leaders are alpha. Some of these men have no leadership quality. You can hold your nuts, you can sag your pants, you can bang women from here to Florida. You know, it just, these young men think that, the bravado of it all is where their manhood lies, and I think we need to really reconstruct for ourselves. As you said, there's been an arbitrary reconstruction of what masculinity means in this country, and I think that we need to reconstruct it, reconstruct it for
Hmm.
ourselves, and redefine it for ourselves, not only for our communities but for the communities that are affected by our atmospheres and the energies that we put out here.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been lost. It's definitely been misconstrued. Um, and some things that I think of is as far as making a comparison or actually contrasting alpha and beta males. I'm thinking of beta male. I'm thinking of no backbone, lack of dignity, no sense of self-respect. You
Yeah,
know,
yellow.
a level of acquiescence, docile, conservatives. These individuals aren't alpha males. They are submissive and easily controlled and manipulated and brainwashed by other men.
Absolutely.
No, they're not in search of their own truth. So and contrary to that, or excuse me, on the other side of that, alpha males, dominant, fearless, territorial, community leaders, resilient, one who won't settle, a radical thinker, progressive, a revolutionary, one who won't rest until his family rises above mediocrity, or one that defeats his oppressor.
Talk
Things
that
that
shit.
things that
Talk
yeah,
that shit.
things of that nature. So like I said, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and and I'm gonna add that being polite, respectful, helpful, honest, thoughtful, and sincere takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. It definitely requires strength and courage. You face pain as an alpha male and resistance, despite how easy and pleasant it might be to avoid doing what's right and what's needed, what's necessary. You stand up, you face adversity, you stand 10 toes down. You feel me?
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, you remain reliable and dependable when called upon, being responsible, holding yourself accountable, owning up to your faults and mistakes. It's very difficult to do that for many people, let alone sustain that level of humility.
Absolutely, man. I think I heard a quote. I'm probably gonna butcher that motherfucker, but I heard a quote a while ago, man. When I was a teenager, and it was like, the measure of a man isn't, how he treats the great men or the big men around him. The measure of a big man is how he treats the small men around him.
Mm,
Right. And one who doesn't exploit their natural abilities and natural gifts and natural qualities over people in a way that would misuse them.
mm,
um, like a lot of guys talk about alpha, or they portray themselves, with their chest poked out, and they talk about, how they run shit, or how they think they're leaders, but real men don't respect them. Right. There are a lot of men, especially the guys who manipulate women and leave their kids behind, and do all of this shit for the bravado of it all. But real men don't respect them. No real man looks up to them. No real alpha even acknowledges these guys.
right.
You ever been around a guy, there's a yeah, I'm not even gonna tell that story about from high school when you told old boy, get back, boy, you
Right.
soft. And he got the fuck back. But
Man.
there are a lot of men who don't have the respect of their peers, but they got women. They can control or manipulate a misguided young women, and they think they're alpha because of that. And I think that one sure sign of a beta male, for me, and maybe this is just energetic, or maybe this is the intrinsic character of a man, but one sure sign of a beta male for me, or weak man, that's not necessarily beta, but a very weak man, is that he's taking advantage of people and exploiting the perceived strengths that he have, or that he has over people. That he's taking advantage of women. That he's leaving his children. That he's cheating life in ways that destroy his own community. You know, I'm so tired of the culture that we've built, even in our music, that the women are singing about thugs and criminals. And let me tell y'all something, man. Alpha is not criminal. That is not what alpha is. That's not what leadership is. That is not what masculinity is. Masculinity
Not
isn't
at all.
criminal. Masculinity isn't aggressive. Masculinity doesn't trample upon the boundaries of others for the sake of having power. You know, real masculinity and real leadership allows a more qualified person to lead when necessary. The
Hmm.
greatest leaders know when to be followers. I
Yeah.
can't stand when I'm in a group, whether it be a work project or anything, you know, any kind of group activity that you might have to, you know, participate with other people. And you know, there might be one qualified person. There might be somebody who's specializing in the very skill set we need. But then there's some dumbass who thinks for some reason or another that he's more alpha than everybody around, and he wants to run things even though he's not
Hmm.
qualified
Hmm.
because he has a skewed understanding of what his leadership ability is or what leadership is in general, right? Because he's stuck to this idea of being alpha, right? Running things. When you're not qualified, if you're alpha, if you're a real leader and you're not qualified, you shut the fuck up like everybody else and listen to the person who knows what's
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
right? And that's one of the issues in the community of men is that we have a lot of men who are unqualified, speaking out of turn, right? Trying to
Hmm.
lead the blind and they blind.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think
Yeah.
for the most part, man, you know, if anything, you know, sticks to your stomach after this conversation, man, I really want people to understand that leadership, alpha, masculine quality, it should contain therein the wisdom to know when to back up and let somebody else lead the conversation, lead the situation, or lead you to the promised land, whatever that may look like at the time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's having the wherewithal to do that, to know when it's not your turn, get in line, follow suit, and to know when to step up. There's checks and balances. But like you said, too often people make the wrong assumption that masculinity is just being macho. And as you said before, just showing that bravado, appearing dominant, asserting their aggression. And
Or those dudes with the attitude problems. You
yeah, yeah, acting
motherfuckers
hard.
with the attitude problem. Like you got aggression issues, me too.
Yeah.
What you want to do about it? Like most of the time when they go unchecked, it's like that. But if you step to one of them dudes, man, they really ain't about that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
they've had their way with so many weak-minded young people or people who are intimidated by them or misguided young women who are
Hmm.
pining for their affection that because they think they can lead some women into a dark place and lay them down, and now you alpha. So you didn't hit
Hmm.
5 or 6 women this week. Now you want to talk to me like you got some nuts. Like,
Hmm.
man, I hurt one of these boys, man. I swear to God. Like, I'm glad I don't have like a little sister, you know, or a cousin out here getting mistreated, man. Because I'm not like
Ain't the
I
one
really,
for.
man, I really be wanting to put the alpha on some of these alphas, man. I swear to God, bro.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, I do want to mention for those who might be thinking along the same lines as me right now, though. That I want to mention that as it pertains to a man and his relationships, because that's always a focus of mine. An alpha man or alpha male is a man who can lead a strong woman, who can lead a queen, who doesn't require weakness from his woman in order to be a great leader or a great partner or a great spouse. A man
Yeah.
who's smart enough to know when he needs to shut the fuck up and let his
Right.
woman talk. Right. Because
Right.
sometimes, like my woman, man, she be knowing shit that I'm not up on sometimes.
Hmm.
Sometimes she's the leader in a specific situation because she's more qualified to speak on or lead in that situation. I don't
Hmm.
be knowing everything all the time. And
Right.
so I think that a leader understands when to give his power position up or when to put that power position down uh,
Hmm.
for the betterment of not only his family or the situation, but of his community. And so there's a liquidity that comes with leadership that you have to be willing to let go of the idea and the ego behind leadership. Leaders don't have egos; they have a purpose. Uh, but yeah, there's a liquidity that a real natural leader has, and knowing and understanding when he's needed and when he's not, or when his energy is needed but his input isn't. right?
Mm-hmm.
When his abilities are conducive to the success of whatever the situation might be. And so, I think a man who leads and provokes growth in the people around him, that's a man who's alpha. That's a man who's masculine, right?
Yeah.
And we have so much alpha and masculinity mislabeling, that we got these guys running around and they not alpha. They just assholes who might intimidate a couple of people around them. And then
Mm-hmm.
and that leads us to this discussion of toxic masculinity. And so
Mm-hmm.
now we got a bunch of young brothers who are kind of effeminate in nature just because they've been trained away from being natural leaders,
Mm-hmm.
real alpha men, because the example of alpha has been misunderstood. We watched Bravado and we've accepted that as alpha, and now we're labeling real masculinity toxic.
Yeah.
And so these weak leaders out here are destroying it for the rest of us brothers who are actually handling our responsibilities energetically, physically, emotionally, intellectually out here. um, to be thought of as a toxic man, or my masculinity is toxic, because somehow or another I don't fit the mold of today's metrosexualized man. It's kind of frustrating, and
Mm-hmm.
I just want to encourage some of the brothers that's listening. Man, I'm not letting it go, brother. I'm a classic man, like the song say.
Yeah.
uh, while that might not mean that I would say the type of things that you could say in the 70s or the 80s, it does mean that I will always retain my right to lead my own thought process and be a thought leader, and an independent and an individual thinker, at the very least. I will not be ruled by the societal rule, and the group think that is pressed upon our community. And because we have a group think of ignorance that's pressed upon us, here's these drugs, here's these big booties. Watch them shake. Look at this. Don't look behind the curtain. Just look at the big booties, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
so distracted with our the thoughts of grandeur and the money and fame and the sex and the women, that we've gotten away from our purpose as men. And our
Man.
purpose is always supposed to be to strengthen and provide and protect the integrity and the character and the consistency of spirit in our communities. And so,
Yeah.
like I said, they say pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Like when the Wizard of Oz got caught, as an old dude, just making noise in that little chamber he was in. That's kind of how we're being approached by society right now. Is that there's somebody pulling the strings to take away, the classic masculinity and replace it with an effeminate man who needs to be chased with opportunity because he doesn't go chase it.
Yeah.
He needs to be hunted, with
Mm-mm.
morale and character, because it doesn't live in him in the same way.
Yeah.
His instincts to ferociously and fiercely guide and protect and be motivated and be driven and be ambitious and conquer. Right, those motivations have been stripped away from the guys now. And it's like, oh, you're a toxic sexist, or um, you're what they call it. You're a toxic masculine man. It's toxic masculinity this and toxic masculinity that. And I think that there's the balance that we need to strike
A
between the
misogynist. Yeah.
yeah
Things
the
like that.
you go to toxic misogynist. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a balance that needs to be struck between the idea of femininity and the idea of masculinity and where they meet, because there was a perfect balance and now we're polar opposites, and that's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tragic how much it's been damaged, that masculine thought, and how, like I said, society played a big role. And during the whole time, like I said, we've been blindfolded, we've been misled. And a lot of the leaders that we did have in place, or no longer living, been assassinated, whatever. We don't have those same strong institutions that that we once had in those in the times of the 70s, 60s, and 70s. So, but yeah, like just going back to the thought process now of what masculinity is, um, being hard, having a dog like mentality. Like that's what people think. That's most people's first thought of masculinity. And quite frankly, that type of behavior is just animal like.
Yeah.
That's savage beast. And so I think that has a lot to do with how things have changed in our communities, because that role fits the narrative of those claiming that the streets are in fact the jungle. The
Right.
streets are the wild. So all of these men are thinking it's a dog eat dog world. Every man for himself. Everything is cutthroat. It's me or you. So we're severing ties. We're not staying knit tight as a community. You have one little disagreement, and now it's a beef. Now you can't even have a conversation with someone to amend that and get back on the same page and move forward. Like, it's been taken way out of context. Men can't be men, step up as men and just have a man conversation, man
Yeah.
to man. What's wrong with that? you know
Or man, fisticuffs.
or
Like
that.
we literally thinking that, oh, okay, man, he done killed somebody. He hard.
Hmm.
Cause you was afraid to take a ass whooping and got a gun. You hard.
Yeah.
You a bitch. Like,
Yeah,
you a
exactly.
whore, dude.
Straight
Like,
up.
that's somebody's brother, somebody's father, somebody's cousin, somebody's husband. Like, man, we got to get out of this is afraid to take a ass whooping type of culture that's been built around us. And like I said, they took our masculinity, told us it was toxic. They stripped us from it. They've created all these buzzwords that move people away from the ideas, and then they've replaced it with this gangster hip hop culture that misrepresents not only black men but men in general.
Yeah,
Why?
that was all done by design. You already know.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely, but man, like you said, these young brothers thinking that toughness is masculinity, and it becomes a rite of passage when you're in a survival situation, right? So
Hmm.
for the black community, especially specifically, our survival put us in a very different mind state and a very different cultural state than maybe some other people and some other cultures listening can relate to. But even so, we've seen that bravado across the racial spectrum, and that's been the thing that replaced the true masculinity of just responsible men who were handling their business and leading their communities and their families in the right direction, doing what was good for the people and what was good for the group and what was good for their families. Now everybody wants to do what's good for them and them only, and because they get to the top like that, you travel a lot faster with no baggage, and that baggage being
Hmm.
your family, your community, your friends, the people who are you owe your love and commitment to. Hell yeah, you can get to the top only serving you. But that doesn't make you an alpha. That doesn't make you a leader, and you shouldn't be considered a success when you left everyone behind in
Yep.
getting to that place.
Yeah, exactly. And granted, it's like you said, the times that we're living in. I get it. It's a ruthless and cruel world we live in, and these harsh and cynical conditions. A lot of it, a lot of the mentalities conform to a survival of the fittest mindset, and in the big picture of things, that then affects their everyday interactions with women and children. So like I said, it takes a huge it's a huge loss for the whole community, because we're at the apex of the community, as men, as fathers. So if we're affected, if we're going about things totally wrong and misconstruing a lot of our responsibilities, then the whole community is going to suffer.
Absolutely, like the headless horseman, man. It's kind of like that, like the damn headless horseman. Could you imagine? They used to say cut the head off a snake. And that was our way. Cut the head off the snake. Cut the head off the snake. Well, the head been gone. The community
Hmm.
is in disarray because
Hmm.
we don't have real men. We don't have real masculinity anymore. We just have bravado, and the community's in disarray. It's going every which way. And then the head of the snake still trying to figure out how he can live on his own because he's going his own way. He's figured out how he can live efficiently without needing anybody or helping anybody or serving anybody. And it's just some bullshit, man. We need to do better as men.
Have to. We have to. And honestly, actually today, it was a kind of a unique situation. Well, not, I don't want to say unique, but it kind of added to the point that we're trying to make with masculinity. So my son today was throwing a huge temper tantrum, and with his mother crying, being hysterical, just wilding out. I'm upstairs, and while this is all happening, so I called him from the top of the stairs, told him to, come up to me. And, he didn't want to hear that, and he's falling out, so I go down to him and we make a trip upstairs. So I close the door, to the office, and, I get him to calm down. I'm like, close your mouth, calm down, no talking, seal your lips. I'm in a calm but assertive, type of tone. And, I said, listen, I'm gonna do the talking, you're gonna do the listening. And, got him to calm down slowly. He went from 100 to back to zero. He relaxed himself and he was ready to listen. So I put him in my lap, and checked him as a man, and I said, hey, there's no reason for you to be crying at all. You know how to talk. This is how we communicate. You know how to ask for things just fine. We can't help you if all you're doing is crying. That you're not helping yourself. We can't help you. There's nothing positive going on right now. So I told him he's much better than that. I assured him of that. I told him to look at me. Told him I loved him. And told him to apologize to his mother, and tell his mother, that he loves her. So, but like I said, I could have whooped him, could have yelled at him, stuck him in the corner, something like that, something that wasn't going to help the situation at all. He could do that reoccurringly. So,
Absolutely.
I took the time, showed my masculinity by leading him the right way, not letting his mind run astray, and to know that all I did was get in trouble. As a 2-year old, he's young, but he's well advanced. He's processing what he's doing, the the ramifications for it, and things like that. So, um, what I did was progressively restore order in the house. Come to the aid of him, relieve his mother, and show him and establish the best way to communicate that helps everyone. So
Mhm.
that's just one of a small but prime example of showing masculinity.
Absolutely. And on large scale, we need an army of men to do that for the community of men,
Hmm.
in the black community especially. Is that we need that love, but that tough nurturing.
Hmm.
It's not as fluffy, but it's as effective as the way you've disciplined your son as a great man.
Hmm. Appreciate it. And like I said, we have our times. There's times that we're short with them, and we snap. But like I said, as long as we make the conscious effort, that we're aware of what we're doing, and like I said, we had to come back, check ourselves, and go speak with them again. Hey, let me talk to you about something real quick. Hey, I
Yeah,
apologize for earlier. You know what I mean? This is my point I'm trying to get across, and explain it to them. You know what I mean? I think they'll take that. That'll leave a lasting impression. They'll want to, you know fall into the mold that's set for them.
absolutely.
They want
You
to, make you proud, and to measure up to, what they should be as your child. So.
Absolutely. You've shown him not to exploit his strengths, which you haven't. You've shown him to take responsibility, which you have. And
Hmm.
correcting yourself in the times that you are quick on it, right?
Hmm.
You've shown him that he can be corrected without necessarily being wrong, right? You've allowed him
Hmm.
space to have his feelings, but he's also in exposed to enough rigidity that he gets in order. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
there's a great balance there, but all of those things on the individual level are life lessons that contribute to a man's masculinity, real
Yep.
masculinity, and that reaffirmed in your household will create a great young man, much like his father.
Definitely. I appreciate it, man. Um, that this is a great conversation. I hope a lot of the listeners are taking this all in. Um, share a lot of this information. Please, chime in. Let us know what you're thinking. What are your thoughts on masculinity? Bring other people into the conversation. Share this. Make it a conversation between you and other fathers, other mentors. Is something I know that's talked about in a lot of different communities. Let's get the real conversations going. Let's get the facts going. But before we check out for this show, any last words you want to leave, Kev?
Man, I think we need to redesign our own culture as men and as fathers, and decide what masculinity is for us. and not let the media and the culture and the flavor of the day decide what that masculinity looks like. What will sustain us in time? That's what we need to focus on.
Right. I agree. 100%. Hey, come to the end of the show, y'all. So again, thanks for the huge support that you guys give on the Fatherhood Village podcast. Again, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Instagram. We'll be on YouTube real soon. Check us on all kind of major stream. I mean, we're on so many things right now. I really got to think about it. I mean, we're on Google. I think we'll be on Apple Podcasts here in the next few days. We're on Castbox. We're on Spotify, Anchor, you name it. And if we're missing something, if it's a platform that you pay a lot of attention to, that you use, uh, let us know. We'll drop it on there. We want to reach as many people as possible with our messages, our conversations. So, but you heard it from us. The Fatherhood Village is Deo. That's Kev. Peace and love.
Peace and love.